Everyone, this is Philip Conpolly from Respectability today, and I'm so glad that we're able to offer this webinar both to our nationwide audience, but also to the great folks of Iowa VR's conference today. So one of the great things about having this is that we will have an audio recording of the presentation today that we can share with you, and I think it's going to be a really wonderful learning opportunity. As I said, my name is Philip. I am with Respectability. We are a national organization that works on jobs for people with disabilities, and we are always very excited and pleased to see the innovative ideas that Iowa's Vocational Rehabilitation team is bringing forward to empower more and more people with disabilities into the workforce. And I think they're going to have a really great presentation for you today. Pardon me. As all of you, I hope, realize, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and the theme this year is the right talent right now. And one of the key pieces of making that a theme, this idea of getting more and more people with disabilities into the workforce, is getting that talent connected to employers, and that is where folks such as yourselves who are deeply committed to this issue, folks who are working in the vocational rehabilitation system, people who work in the workforce development system nationwide, this is where you really come in, getting employers the talent they need and getting people with disabilities the jobs they want. And so with that, I'm going to shut up now and turn it over to my friends and colleagues over in Iowa.
Thank you very much, Philip. This is David Mitchell, and I am the administrator for the Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services Program. We really appreciate the work that you and Jennifer do with Respectability in increasing awareness and visibility regarding the talents of individuals with disabilities across the country. We're really excited to share information on what we're doing here in Iowa VR with business engagement. For those of you who don't know, we are a state agency receiving state and federal funds to work with individuals who have disabilities with a clear focus on competitive integrated employment. In Iowa, we work with all types of individuals with disability conditions with the exception of blindness, and that's handled by our partner agency for the Iowa Department for the Blind. We don't claim to have all the answers here, but we really are committed to change our service culture to include integrated business services. We want to be at the intersection of disability knowledge and business intelligence. And we think if we get there, we believe that we'll have the best possible solutions to meet the needs of our job candidates and our business partners. We're really excited. In today's presentation, our team is actually live in one of our administrative buildings in Des Moines, Iowa, with our State Rehabilitation Council. Our State Rehabilitation Council is a governor-appointed advisory group that's made up of individuals across the state of Iowa, and they are actually excited to hear this presentation live along with you across the nation. Let me turn it over to the stars of our presentation. We have our Business Services Director and 3 of our vocational rehabilitation counselors who represent different areas of the state, including our self-employment program. And they really represent the excellent work that's occurring across the field. They'll be telling and sharing their stories about the work they've done in business engagement. And we're really excited to hear that and appreciate the work that each of these guys do. They're really kind of our Navy SEAL team, the best of the best. So with that, we'll turn it over to Michelle Kreft, our Business Services Director.
Thank you. So I'm excited to be amongst some of my greatest colleagues sharing the work that they're doing in the field. I'm fortunate enough to be able to report to you the work of the rest of our business services team. So here in Iowa, we really value the dual customer approach, both customers being our job candidates and our business partners. And about 3 years ago, we looked at what that looks like here in Iowa and how do we serve our business partners with the current staff that we already have, not able to add additional staff to serve our businesses. And so we're more of a rural state here in Iowa, and we have 2 people that are designated strictly to business services. And so these two individuals are bachelor-level positions, and 100% of their caseload is for business services. We have 13 area offices, and in six of those offices, we have part-time business services staff. And so those are our counselors. 3 of them you're going to meet today. And they have a caseload of job candidates, and the rest of their time is spent with our business partners. And they also act as mentors to the rest of our field staff. And then in the remaining 5 offices, our business team are mentors. And so they go out with staff, but they don't specifically have a caseload of business services. So that's kind of what it looks like here in Iowa. Our team meets about monthly, and we really drive business services, and we drive what it looks like in the field. And I hope our team feels like they're included in the decisions and they get a say in what it looks like. Together, we put together our training programs for our business partners, and our staff are on the front line helping us put that together. We talk about best practices. We go visit businesses together. We share what we're doing within our business partners with each other. So we get to travel around the state and see what each one of us is doing out in the field. And one of the things we do is we store everything in our Google Drive. And so in our Google Drive, you'll find a list of all of the different business partners that we work with. And you might find videos of people doing the job along with that task analysis. So as you're sharing your business intelligence with your job candidates, you can show a video of the person doing the job for the visual learners, and you also have the written documentation broken down step by step for the rest of your learners, or you can use both of them together. So we are going to start by talking about one of our great business partners, Brothers Market. They are a grocery store located in 8 locations in Iowa. They're a family-owned store. They're going to be opening 2 more stores, and they have 2 in 2 other states. And I think one of the most interesting things about Brothers Market is the owner of the store is really invested in the relationship with Voc Rehab. And so he has regular calls with his store managers, and he invites Voc Rehab into those calls. So we can talk about the people that we've referred, the placements. We can strategize how to help get more referrals, how to impact retention. They're really great calls at the management level, and we have the owner buy-in, and so we've had great successes with them. Recently, we had 9 individuals do work-based learning through their high school programs, and of those 7 were hired when their work-based learning ended. And Gideon, his picture is on the slide. Gideon was a young man who in high school had 32 prompts, or up to 32 prompts a day to stay on task. He says that he got in a lot of trouble in high school because he was oftentimes doing his own thing. He went to work through a work-based learning at Brothers Market with a job coach, and within a week, Gideon had 0 prompts at work, 0. He went from 32 to 0, and he no longer has a job coach. He is doing exceptionally well, and we've gotten feedback that he's one of their great employees, so that's really exciting. Templeton Rye is unique because the population in Templeton is 320 people. And we sometimes hear it's really difficult to do business engagement when you're in a really small community. Where do you go when you're in such a small community? Our staff who serves the city of Templeton along with our workforce partners called Templeton Rye and scheduled a business intake. They just really wanted to learn more about what the needs were of the business. And doing this intake, they of course identified that the business needs workers. And guess what we have? We have lots of great workers. And so they were able to start a phenomenal partnership. And Jill Daniels is our staff who worked on that partnership, and she said when she met with them and explained our services, they were never not interested in partnering. They were never not interested in moving forward. In fact, the manager said, you know, we've partnered with all kinds of other agencies, including some temp agencies, and we just didn't get the retention that we're getting by partnering with you. And so initially, we placed 4 individuals. These are in some modified or carved jobs. And so Jill was able to look at the job and make recommendations to the plant on how they could take one job and divide it into 2 jobs, really a job modification to meet the business needs, and help our job candidates at the same time. You'll see on the quote it says, at no point did we think that we have people with disabilities working for us. We have people who are willing to come in every day with great attitudes and get the job done. Kwik-Trip is one of our partners from the National Employment Team, and they really took the single point of contact to the next level. They partner with us on their retail helper position, which is a modified position for people with disabilities, and there is one at every store. And so if a person has transportation barriers and they have to take the bus, and the bus doesn't arrive at the Kwik-Trip stop until, say, 10:10, the shift would start at 10:15 instead of 10 o'clock. Or if the person's interest and work experience lies in doing kitchen duties, they would modify the job so the person would maybe be chopping fruits and vegetables in the kitchen and packaging those. If the person's interests lied with janitorial, then the person would maybe be outside cleaning around the gas pumps, or inside stocking shelves and cleaning the restrooms and the lobby area. And they really found by doing this, they were able to free up their guest service workers to provide better customer service to the guests, which ultimately gets them more business, which improves their bottom line, and that's why they do it. And they just created a poster for the retail helper positions, and our Voc Rehab's contact information is on that poster. And so to serve our business partner, we pre-screen every job candidate that applies for those positions. And our staff have worked really hard to understand what the business is looking for and sending them great candidates. And I'm not saying we're screening candidates out. I would say more we're screening candidates in, because we know what they're looking for. We know what they want. It's our job to prepare those candidates to be the best fit. So one example of that would be a job candidate who had been in sheltered work and several sheltered workshops and had been exited for theft. I don't know that anybody really worked with him on strategies to not steal. So we know that Kwik-Trip says theft is the most important thing. You cannot steal. Even if there's something in the garbage, you cannot take it out. That would be theft, and we would let you go. So when this young man identified that that was his issue, instead of screening him out, we screened him in. And what we did was we worked with his natural supports at home to make sure he got money before every shift, and somebody had a conversation with him before his shift started about what you can take and what you cannot take. We also worked with the manager, and so the store reminds him every day when he comes in that if he finds something he likes, he has money in his pocket, and we can't take anything out of the garbage. We also placed Julie there, and Julie was a 58-year-old woman who has only worked in sheltered work, and Julie's first working in the community was at Kwik-Trip. She's amazing. She'll tell you how amazing she is and how much the store and the community love her because she is completely rocking it. Julie went from making less than $3 an hour in sheltered work to over $14 an hour at Quick-Start as a retail helper. I just recently got the numbers from corporate, and they said right now we have 49 active positions in Iowa. We have 18 openings. Our turnover rate here in Iowa for the people we directly place with them is only 6%. And in other states it's running at about 20%. And I really attribute that to the amazing work of our staff, because not only do they know everything there is to know about our job candidates, they know everything there is to know about our business partners, and they're making good matches, and they're making sure that we have the support in place for our job candidates to be successful and continue to be successful. Next is La Quinta, and we have a staff who is embedded there. She goes there twice a month and provides on-site services to the job candidates that we've hired, as well as services to potential job candidates. And so if we have individuals who would be interested in hotel or hospitality, they can meet her on site and meet the managers, really get a feel for the work environment, and we can help make sure that we have a good fit there. She went through orientation and really knows the job, I would say, as well as probably some of their staff, because she gets to spend a lot of time there. And before they even opened, we had 7 hires. It's really nice because she's there to provide ongoing support to make sure that our hires are going to be successful. The last one I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to Jason is the Laborers Union. And so I'm lucky enough to sit on a statewide sector board partnership board. And the Laborers Union was also on this board, and they were talking about the lack of people interested in going into laborer positions. Well, I knew that we have a ton of applicants who potentially would be interested in working with their hands. And so the amazing business team got together with the Laborers Union and had a meeting and talked it out and talked through everything and identified areas that they wanted to go with the Laborers Union. Someone suggested, well, the best way to know the job is to do the job. So we all had to put on our jeans and come in to work, and you can see pictures of us pouring and mixing concrete using a circular saw to cut wood and rebar. We built frames, we built rebar, we mixed and poured concrete and made concrete slabs. And it was really an eye-opener, and we all learned that we are much better counselors than we are laborers. So our next meeting is to get our team and the union back together to set some goals. What we really want to do is talk about where we are now and where we see ourselves in the future, and holding each other accountable to those goals. So after our meeting, Jason Rubel from our Dubuque office implemented some next steps that he's going to talk to you about.
Yeah, so almost immediately following meeting with the Laborers Union the day that we did the activities such as pouring concrete, it was about 3 days later I had one of the representatives, Joey, come to our office in Dubuque and met with 5 of my job candidates, or 5 of our office's job candidates, 4 of whom had been in a program in Dubuque called the HEART program, Housing, Education, and Rehabilitation Training Program, which allows students who might have some learning disabilities, things like that, and are not really geared toward schooling. They spend half their day on a job site working, remodeling homes in Dubuque for resale as low-income housing, and they spend the other half of the day doing functional academic work. And so I had those individuals in to meet with Joey from the Laborers Union, and he had a great discussion. Came in and spent a lot of time getting to know our job candidates a little better, telling them about what they did, and then getting to know about their experience level and really kind of getting to know their personalities. He was talking kind of gruff and using some construction worker language and things like that, just to see kind of how they were going to respond and who was going to really shy away from that and who wasn't, and then did some assessments with him for about half hour, 45 minutes, some paper-based assessments to learn if they knew what their tools were, just what they knew as far as knowledge-wise about construction. And later on that day in the afternoon, I received a call back from Joey, and he stated that two of the individuals who had been, of the 5 individuals, 2 of them he would like to start late winter, early spring in an apprenticeship. We've got 2 major contractors out of the Dubuque area who get most of their employees from the Laborers Union, and they're planning on one or the other of those businesses taking them on in the spring. But one of my first great business relationships that I built was with Prudential Retirement Services in Dubuque, Iowa, and it was really a learning experience for me. It was the relationship, as it says there, that changed my perspective on business services. I used to do placement by, I'd have a job candidate and I'd think, okay, well, this person would like a job in this sector and their interest area is this. And I'd go out and try to form a business relationship surrounding that person so that I could place that person in the business. Or else, if I had to make business contacts and I didn't have, because we've got requirements for how many business contacts we had to make, I'd go out and make that contact, and until I had a job candidate to place into those positions, I really didn't go do much follow-up or go back to that business and maintain that relationship or continue to build upon that relationship. And I'd try to go in and tell them all about VR and all the wonderful things that we do and that we've got on-the-job trainings and we've got assessments that we can do and all this information. And I really feel like now, in retrospect, I was just overloading them instead of really learning about their business needs. So what Prudential taught me in that relationship was that building that business relationship means showing how invested you are in their needs, not on Voc Rehab or your job candidate's needs, but what they want. Going in and doing a business intake and just focusing on, hey, we're here to serve you and we'd like to know more about your business. And that's basically where the conversation goes, is surrounding them and their business needs and what the tasks are and what their issues with employee retention or recruitment have been in the past. So that goodness of fit with the business culture matters also as much as the ability to perform the functions of the job. That was something I learned in that relationship. I had begun by sending them some candidates who I thought they were qualified to do the job and they'd be able to do it, and I still think they probably were, but they weren't getting hired because they didn't fit that culture that they had at Prudential, as far as maybe just the way they looked or the way they acted, which is maybe somewhat closed-minded, but we've got to meet businesses where they're at, and then once we are able to place some people and have some success, that's when you start to change those mindsets. So building that relationship with HR is really not enough. You need to get to know the employees and supervisors as well, and that's where I really got to learn about that business culture and things, is by going in, working alongside or getting to know the employees, watching what they were doing, talking with them, getting to know what they liked about their job, what they didn't like about their job, talking to their managers, finding out what the issues were. Because HR, they know how to hire people, and they really they know about the job and what they're looking for in an employee. But if you really want to get down to what it's going to feel like and look like to be in that job, you've got to kind of immerse yourself in it and get to know the employees, supervisors, and those people who are on the ground actually doing the job. So that experience for me had led to externships, which is my favorite tool in developing successful business partnerships. So an externship is an experiential opportunity to learn an employer's jobs firsthand. It could be a job shadow, or it could be a hands-on learning experience, and that's what I really like, is the hands-on part, getting right in alongside the workers, working alongside them, and getting to know them, getting to know the jobs they do, and how everything fits into place when they are working on the floor and doing those jobs. So ideally, it's going to last as long as it takes to learn the job tasks, about the people and that culture that I discussed before, and about the physical environment. And externships, when you're doing an externship, it's going to show that business some positive things about the relationship we're trying to build. It's going to show them that we're willing to take the time to learn about them, that we're invested in them, that we're going to ask questions and learn and find out what the tasks are, learn that culture, know that environment. And it all shows them how invested you are in their business and that you're there to support them, not just wanting something from them, like to place your job candidate. By the way, that was a picture of me up there in a welding helmet at John Deere, which is the next slide here. John Deere, my initial meeting with them had been in March 2018. I met with HR and Labor Relations there, and we discussed their needs and their issues, and I gave them just some general information surrounding VR, and then set up a follow-up tour. Went back the next month for that tour, and it was a riding tour, because it's a big facility. They employ about 2,500 people in Dubuque, and they've got, I think, 8 other locations in Iowa that we're trying to expand relationships to now. But it's a lot of area under roof, so it's a riding tour. And we stopped, asked them, hey, can we stop and look here, or can we stop and look there? And we walked through part of their backhoe operation, things like that, and asked pertinent questions. And we, at the end, said, hey, would you guys be open to doing an externship here? And that began an externship the next month for me for a week, where I just immersed myself in the culture and embedded myself with the employees at John Deere, doing positions in welding. I spent a couple days with a welder named Dell, learning all about the welding positions. Spent a couple days on the production assembly line, where I moved from station to station for an hour or two at each station, just on a backhoe line, watching how the equipment went together and how if one person made a mistake, it really screwed up the line, down the line somewhere, and affected the whole business. But also a material coordinator position, which was very interesting to me. They had described all these positions to me before I went in and actually did the externship. But the material coordinator, when they were describing the job to me, I thought, oh, I've got this guy. He's a young fella. He had a stroke a few years ago. He's the perfect fit for this job. He knows how to use their computer system already. And that's what the job basically was described to me, was they're moving inventory around in the computer system and working with the buyers and the sellers of this stuff to make sure that the inventory is where it needs to be within the factory and that they've got enough of it to fulfill their needs at any one station. And so I thought, this guy would be great. And then I got in there and actually did the job, and I just about had shin splints by the end of the first day, because there were always things that weren't where they were supposed to be. And your computer, if they're not where they're supposed to be in the computer, what do you have to do? You have to go out on the factory floor, and you got to go find that stuff. And the young lady I was working alongside, she was walking a pretty good power walk the whole time, and I would say probably 60% of the job was out on the floor, actually talking to people, trying to find out where the stuff was, or actually going through inventory, trying to find where these things were. So I found out very fast by doing an externship what I thought about that job wasn't correct, and the job candidate who I would have sent them was totally wrong for the job. But I did have a communications major at University of Dubuque who was working at, while she was going to school, she was working at Tony Roma's, a restaurant in Dubuque, and I knew that she had a very bubbly personality, and she's a communications major, communicates well, and I've seen how fast-paced she was by eating in that restaurant. I've got the person for you. So hence, for our first placement was 2 months later with Libby, and she's been there over a year now and just doing wonderful, loves the job, and they love her, and it's been a really good fit. So since that time, we've really been building on that relationship. We've placed an intern in their water treatment facility, someone who's going for environmental services at the University of Dubuque, so good fit for them in the water treatment facility. 2 production workers, one of whom came out of our Job Corps program with I can't remember what they went there for, but it was industrial maintenance. So they've got him on their production floor. We've assisted one of their people with assistive technology for a hearing impairment, getting them cochlear implants so that they could be more effective at their job, because they had to communicate. They were in a salaried position where they communicated a lot over the phone and things, and it was not going well because their hearing had been deteriorating. And through this relationship and developing this relationship, we've also begun working with another company named Hodge, who is at the John Deere Dubuque Works on one end of their building, and they do logistical and material handling for the John Deere Dubuque Works. So we've also increased that partnership with John Deere in our high schools and with Voc Rehab statewide. We've gotten connections for the counselors in those areas with those other 8 facilities, as well as getting them out into the John Deere, out into the high schools more, working with students to expand their future workforce. This Friday, we'll be going there with 2 high schools from within our Dubuque area offices service unit, and we're going to have 20 to 25 students touring the facility on Friday. So, and with Hodge, Hodge provides, as I said before, that logistical support for John Deere, and I went out there and did an externship, but I had a couple guys who I'd placed there first. When I initially met with them, again, I had thought, gosh, I know just the guys for this job, and they didn't end up working out, but they were having some issues right away, and I said, well, I need to come out and really learn this job and know this job. Can I come do an externship? Went back out there and worked alongside them in a department called Repack, and it was a good experience for me to learn what a good fit for that position was, but it was also a good experience for my job candidates who were already there, because I got the opportunity to work right alongside of them and to work through the issues that they were having on the job while I was working. One of the problems that they had been having was that their pace might not have been good enough, or they might have got distracted easily. So being able to model for them, having a conversation with them while we're working and showing them, hey, you can work and talk at the same time, and if you keep, just little things like that, modeling that behavior for them was very useful. And those employees are doing well. The one gentleman, he had been 17. He was the first person that they'd had who they had hired under the age of 18, because normally you've got to run some equipment and things, but they had hired him kind of his carved position, just in that repack where they're just taking the stuff for John Deere out of crates and putting it into different amounts or different containers that John Deere would normally use rather than what the shipper had sent it in. So he was doing that, and now since that time, he's turned 18. I think back in May he turned 18, and now he's running a forklift and working third shift out there, loving the job. So I also learned through my presence there the need for a job carve, where they had a job that they weren't getting done by the regular employees, but I was working out there or doing the externship out there and saw that they had all these big crates, and I just asked the question, what is in those crates? Well, we've got all these John Deere engines, and these crates need to come off before we can send them over there, and they really didn't have anybody free to do that. I said, well, how about if I see if we can get a couple of high school kids to come out here? And I worked alongside my high school that I'm assigned to in the Dubuque area, and with their work experience coordinator. Our school's got a work experience program and work experience coordinator who tries to place people who are on an IEP in employment out in the community, and they get school credit for having a job and doing that job, and they get the work experience coordinator or their job coaches go out and evaluate them and see how they're doing. So it's a nice tool to work alongside of them. We get a lot of information about our job candidates. But I worked together with the work experience coordinator to get 2 young gentlemen out there who were graduating. This was, I think, in February, and these gentlemen were graduating in May. So we got them out there to take these crates off, and it worked out really well. They went out there at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, stayed till like 4, every day. And when they graduated on a Saturday and Memorial Day was on Monday. Both those gentlemen had jobs on Tuesday. Yeah, it was pretty great. And the one position was a carve position. The young gentleman was receiving Social Security benefits and couldn't work a full-time job. All their positions were full-time, but they really needed somebody out there who could just do some of their odds and ends, run a floor machine and ride that around down their aisles and clean their mezzanine, their break area, and empty the trash, things like that. So he was hired on for 20 hours a week to do that, and the other gentleman was hired on right out of high school just to do a regular job like anybody else would have. And there's me with our job card person, Dominic. I was out there as well. He had a little problems, just a couple little issues for a while. He really thought that floor machine, riding that around like a Zamboni, was a really fun thing to do. So he was kind of letting some of the other things, like the cleanliness of the break area and things, go because he wanted to ride that as long as possible. So I went out and modeled some work behaviors for him too, and worked alongside of him, showing him what that break room really looked like when it should be clean, sweeping the corners and wiping the tables down, and just worked with him a little bit for a day out there, and it's been a huge improvement, and they're very happy with him at this time. So another very recent business relationship I've been building is with Unity Point Health, Finley Hospital in Dubuque. And this partnership began in January, and I had met with HR, and the HR director was just phenomenal right off the bat, which isn't always the case. But by the time we'd met a couple times, he brought in their food service director and their director of environmental services. And he told them, he said, I'd like to see one person in each of your departments within the first quarter of this year. So I thought, wow, I've really got the pressure on now. And we carved out one position. They had their housekeepers kind of rotating, cleaning the stairwells and the elevators when they weren't cleaning people's rooms and cleaning the hallways and things like that. And it was kind of taken away from, they needed to be doing those things, cleaning the patients' rooms. And we carved out a position for this gentleman to come in and just clean their stairwells and elevators. And again, somebody on benefits, and he's now in there 20 hours a week. We had placed him through an on-the-job training. We're onboarding people through their who want to do an on-the-job training through their volunteer services, so that we can get them all the things they need, like their bloodborne pathogens and their TB shot and all these things done prior to them starting in the hospital. But then with the on-the-job training, we allow them to get in there. We're paying them as VR and providing the liability while they find out if it's a good fit, as far as the job candidate finding out if it's a good fit, and the hospital's allowed to find out if it's a good fit prior to hiring them as well. And it ended up being a great partnership. The gentleman had a job coach for a few days just to help him learn how to navigate around the hospital, because I get lost in that hospital, and he's got an intellectual disability, but he picked up on it just like better than I could have. And he is so proud, or was right from the beginning, of how people would stop him in the stairwell and the elevators and tell him what a good job he was doing. And it ended up within 6 weeks, I think, that they said, we want to hire this gentleman on. And they hadn't announced it to him yet, but when their supervisor, the head of environmental services, was walking out of his office with me and down the hallway that day, he looked at me and he said, what are we going to try next? And oh my gosh, I thought that was so awesome, just to have that mindset. So anyway, and then the way that they treated him, they'd made him part of their team right from the get-go, and he ate lunch with everybody and stuff. And then they had a semi-annual meeting of their environmental services department here, about 6 weeks or so ago, maybe a month ago, and they announced in that meeting to him that they were hiring him on. And we were there for that experience and videotaped it, and he was beaming from ear to ear smile when he got hired on. So that was a great opportunity for us. And then we've also got one direct hire in their food service department, and she's working on the front end in their cafeteria, and it's working out great. They did have a couple issues with her where she was touching her hair, touching her face, and you can't be doing that around food service. And, you know, really simple accommodation. We put right at her station where her register is, we put a hand sanitizer dispenser and took care of the problem, and she's doing great. But they've also, since that time, that we were looking at putting somebody in their sterile processing department, and the HR director has told me recently that he would like to see all of our services implemented in the hospital. He also brought up the last time I had met with him that just not to discourage, make sure I'm encouraging people if they want to go into the healthcare field, even if they've got some mobility issues and things that would prevent them from doing direct care, they don't discourage them from going to school to be an RN, because they've got plenty of positions at the hospital where they would not have to do direct care. They've got that need. And so I thought that was really neat, just the open-mindedness and his willingness. He also thought that would be great to have some people with some visible disabilities and visible mobility issues within the hospital so that their patients saw how people were still having productive lives who might be patients of theirs. They'd also recently been discussing that they'd like to assist in their future workforce with meeting with high school students, our college students, things like that, to help them build interest or do career exploration in the healthcare field, which was awesome. And off to Alina. Here we go. There's your dog.
Hello, this is Alina Gar with the Burlington area office, and I'm going to be sharing some stories from Southeast Iowa. So the first thing I have here that I want to share is an opportunity that I had in support of our administrators and my supervisor and colleagues. This last year I was able to participate as a rehabilitation counselor in representing vocational rehabilitation in the Greater Burlington Leadership class. So a lot of different partnerships across the state, represented through Chamber of Commerce or the city or whatever, they create these opportunities for local individuals and employees, right? And so it was a professional leadership development series where I was able to grow my leadership skills and build network opportunities and things like that, where in return I was able to implement that into my daily caseload and roles as a rehabilitation counselor. So you can see there's a picture of my classmates, and I would consider all of them a part of my business network now. It created a lot of, like I said, networking opportunities and positive outcomes. There's a lot of different career pathways and sectors represented in that photo of us. So healthcare, banking, radio, finance, nonprofit, government, you name it. And so at the beginning and the end of my leadership time with them, I said to all of them, hey, I'm going to be recruiting you guys for our summer transition program, because we all know that pre-employment transition services is a huge thing under that new legislation that we need to implement out in the field. And so that's what the positive outcomes were. I was able to recruit a lot of those individuals in that photo to provide information to students or individuals on my caseload, whether that be informational interviews, job shadows, job leads, even touring the businesses. We even had some of them participate in our summer program during the final week of having them participate in mock interviews with our students, so that they were able to really have that real life situation or scenario of, hey, this is what it would be like if I'm going out into the community applying for a job and interviewing for a job. So it was a really great experience, and I have a feeling a lot of them will be returning this upcoming summer for our transition program. And so another thing that our area office really believes in is business after hours. So business after hours is once a month put on by our local Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of, again, cities or small towns put on these events. And this is a great networking opportunity and more of a casual setting and getting to know our local employers and build other connections. So there's some funny photos there of my colleagues and I at American Eye Care Center, and we were able to learn who was all there, who were the doctors, who were the assistants and different staff there on site. And then also we have a great partnership with workforce staff, and so that picture below is a combination of workforce staff, title partners, and our vocational rehabilitation office, and participating in some Greater Burlington partnership events. Again, a great networking opportunity. And there I just have a list of some business connections that have been made over the past few years. Again, a lot of different career sectors are there, and it's definitely creating opportunities for our clients and for our students. My caseload is primarily high school students and community college students, so I've been able to tap into those networking events to make those direct connections between not only what vocational rehabilitation does, but what are the business's needs. So funneling a pipeline of talented workers is the key to that. And I always enjoy sharing success stories, and so I just want to highlight a story today. So J-Bill Manufacturing is a precision injection molding company, manufacturing company in southeast Iowa, in Mount Pleasant, Iowa more specifically. And we were able to kind of through our network meet someone at J-Bill, actually the plant manager and human resources director, through a family friend, through the Older Worker Employment Program, and kind of got everyone involved. It was not only OWEP, it was the Department of Labor, Iowa Works, and Vocational Rehabilitation. So in our area, they put on a hiring event. It was in partnership with Vocational Rehabilitation, and one of my colleagues was able to tour the facility, learn about the facility, and she really felt like they were open to diversifying their workforce. So that led to more business services provided to J-Bill Manufacturing, such as on-site business intake, and really talking about, hey, you know, we're here to help you guys. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you need? We can pre-screen applicants. We have a pool of highly skilled applicants, and we'll follow along and follow up throughout the HR process and the job-seeking process for the applicants. Well, that led to my colleague Brandy doing two job site tours with some job candidates that we felt were good fits for their packaging and processing technician positions, and she helped those individuals with the application, touring the facility, really helping those individuals understand the work environment, because sometimes there's stigma attached to manufacturing. And so it's really about educating not only our job candidates, but really getting a good name out there of, hey, these are viable employers in our area, and you can make a good living, you know, and really show your skills and things. And so some solutions was, of course, placing those two individuals within a 4-month period. We're happy to say that they are still there today. And you can see Alex there down in the corner. He had some experience in manufacturing, primarily temporary work, and his main mission and goal was to become a full-time employee with paid benefits and leave. And we assisted Alex in that. And he gave us permission to share what his thoughts were, and he said that it was a very smooth process, and he felt welcomed and comfortable when he was able to do the job site tour and meet different staff and team leads there on the production floor. And he also said that he felt like he was a productive citizen and really making a difference in helping with the production line and producing products for their customers. So it was really great to see that. And that other picture there is from a local Future Ready Iowa event. A lot of you are probably familiar with Future Ready Iowa if you're a resident in our state, and it's really to develop a pipeline of workers and you know, help develop those skill sets for our future workforce. And so J-Bill Manufacturing actually presented at that event. It was at Cryotech in Fort Madison, Iowa, which is a de-icing manufacturer, and that room was full of probably about 40 or 50 people in education, government, economic development, people from vocational rehabilitation, our local schools, and it was great because the story of Alex and our other job candidate were shared. And so the HR director from J-Bill said, to everyone in the room, you should all be working with vocational rehabilitation. They make the hiring process seamless and easy, and we have two highly skilled, reliable workers, and we're thankful for that. And we're continuing that relationship. We're hoping to foster more workers or a relationship with a local high school there, because the other great thing that came out of this story is that they partnered with Iowa Workforce and the employment specialist there, who we have a good relationship with, and they developed a registered apprenticeship through the Department of Labor for their processing technician. So the goal is for individuals to get their foot in the door at J-Bill Manufacturing, work in the packaging department, kind of proving themselves that they have the skills, and then they may qualify or be recruited to that processing technician registered apprenticeship, and then earn a nationally, a credential through the Department of Labor. So it's a really great story, and just to show the importance of business relationships, another business relationship came out of this event at the Future Ready Iowa, where I was able to meet with HR from a local feed mill in a small town, and I thought it was going to be a 30-minute business intake, and it turned out to be about an hour and a half, and she gave me a tour of the full facility, and so I think that'll turn into looking at some internship opportunities for our local community college students in the agriculture program there. So the next thing I have here is pre-employment transition services. For all of you that are employed by VR, we all know that it's a huge part of our job, right? So for those of you that are audience members that maybe you're an educator, maybe you're in government, I'll just kind of highlight these services. So they include 5 direct services that us individuals in the field provide to our clients, ages 14 to 21, so really assisting with transition from high school to that next step. And that includes job exploration counseling, work-based learning, counseling on opportunities, workplace readiness training, and self-advocacy instruction. And so how do these two things relate? How does pre-employment transition services relate to business? Well, that leads me to the next thing here. So in our area, we have been doing a summer transition program for about the last 4 years, and these business relationships have been just a true foundation or starting point in developing opportunities for the students that we're working with. And you can see some pictures there on the screen, and you know, we're going into these businesses, we're doing tours, we're learning about different jobs, and this is giving exposure to those students. It's making that direct connection between VR clients and the business, right? So the businesses are realizing, wow, VR has a plethora of quality job candidates. We need to be tapping into that. You know, the unemployment rate in Iowa is the lowest that it's ever been, and you know, a lot of these businesses are scrambling to find skilled workers. So why not utilize those resources like VR to develop key partnerships? And so even that picture there on the bottom with like a huge group, that was when we did an employer panel. So we brought in different employees from, again, multiple career sectors. Some of those were my leadership classmates, so I told them they would get recruited, and it was a wonderful experience. Students built their confidence and clients built their confidence to feel comfortable in asking questions and learning about the business, and employers got to know who their future workforce is going to be. And you know, we could not have done the summer program without all of our partners. That's what it's all about, and that includes our contract groups such as Intermediary Network, Transition Alliance Program, which are housed in our community college and in the high schools, in reaching those students that are going to be our future workforce. Iowa Works, Next Step, the local community college, business, and high schools. And I know something too that always comes up is, well, you live in rural Iowa. How do you make that transportation piece work? Again, this is where business and partnership is key. And so really working with Iowa workforce staff, working with the high schools, and seeing, hey, how can we partner? Because a lot of times when they see that this is going to truly impact the clients or the students, they're going to invest in as well. And so it's been a wonderful experience, and I know too that the Rehabilitation Service Agency really wants to see us recording those hours of, hey, how many hours are you spending with these students and providing quality pre-employment transition services. So I do have some numbers for you guys today. So our area office of about 13 staff in our region provided about 782 hours of required activities in those 5 categories, about 74 hours in authorized, and about 260 hours in coordination. And the coordination piece is that key business piece, the logistics of building those business relationships and developing that. And so that kind of just gives you a snapshot of how much time was spent from, say, a span of January until the springtime of really talking with businesses, learning about businesses, so that then we could develop the curriculum and the events for our summer program. So overall, it's been a great thing. This last year, we had about 50 students signed up. When we first started, we had about 7, so there's been exponential growth, and we hope that continues.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Meyer. I am a self-employment specialist for the state of Iowa. We're going to shift gears here for just a moment to focus on self-employment. You can see what self-employment refers to on your slide. All Voc Rehabs across the nation are expected to provide self-employment services, although each program is likely administered a little bit differently. Particularly in Iowa, we have 2 self-employment specialists who cover the state. We basically split her right in half. We provide business development guidance and technical assistance related to marketing strategies, tax guidance, and information on business regulation. There is, of course, that component of working with the vocational rehabilitation counselor to simultaneously overcome the barriers of that person's disability while we are developing their business. Earlier in this presentation, Michelle and Jason discussed being invested in our business's needs when providing those business services. Here, however, we are invested in the success of our candidate first and by extension their business second. With each and every business that you cultivate, there are a number of partners that offer invaluable supports along the way, with many of these supports being available in every state. This slide indicates which agency services are available, hopefully in your state, but maybe by a different name. Some of those might be legal aid, the small business development centers, Voc Rehab, Easter Seals, and then SCORE is also a good one for us too. So you might be asking yourself, why is self-employment part of a discussion on business engagement best practices? Well, not only are we serving businesses in the community, but through our self-employment program, we're also assisting in the creation of businesses in the community, contributing to the labor market demand. Once our self-employment candidates are operating successfully, we can then turn around and provide them with business services by assisting in the hiring and retention of their employees, providing knowledge on work opportunity tax credits, education on ADA compliance, and other business regulations. This slide shows a fraction of the business services available to businesses that are our customers. We talked earlier about that dual customer approach, and of course, through self-employment, we focus on that client or the job candidate first. When they're on their feet, then we can provide those business services second. Working first with a job candidate who desires to become self-employed allows a VR counselor a robust working relationship, and then that JC or that job candidate can become a natural proponent for the benefit of VR services that we can provide to them into the future. So this will be my portion of the hashtag humble brag movement of our podcast. This is Greg. He owns a campground in Delhi, Iowa. He's 24, whopping 24, my goodness. In June of 2018, Greg was earning $550-ish per week, working about 30 hours. That was good for him. He was very happy with that. However, things have changed, and today Greg has earned $55,000 gross. He's working over 40 hours per week, and that's just been in the first 6 months of his season. Greg initially started with 12 campsites, then quickly expanded to 40, and due to even more furious demand, Greg is now building an additional 40 sites for a campground total of 90. Greg's business happens to be just down the road from a local high school, which allows him to partner, providing tours and many internships for those students. The students learn the daily maintenance schedule of the campground, the importance of cleaning up and emptying garbages, thank you Wildlife Hard Life Lessons, how to interact with campers in a customer-friendly way, and how to schedule customers ensuring capacity rules. Greg's business has expanded so much in the last year, he's planning to hire a cleaning staff and a bookkeeping assistant to cover the 2 jobs he absolutely loathes. Greg was fortunate to have his family as a natural support, which is always an integral component to any successful outcome, self-employment or otherwise. And the second portion of my hashtag humble brag movement, this is Brian. Brian came to us in April of this year in debt about 19 G's. 19,000, I should say. He was having to take out loans just to make payroll. Brian provides a window and siding installation business in the Cedar Rapids area. And Brian particularly struggles with bipolar disorder, ADHD, depressive disorder, and difficulty controlling his emotions. Brian has also faced back pain and in the past has resorted to substance abuse in order to cope with the pain. When Brian came to us, he had a really particular and specific business model in mind that we all knew could happen, but we had to tweak just a few things. So in our process of working specifically with Brian as our job client, we encouraged him to increase pay to his employees because his main focus was to obtain quality long-term employees. We also encouraged him to go down to a 4-day work week, which would limit his expenses. We asked him to consider providing benefits to employees, which would also look like giving his employees the winters off with contracted pay. We encouraged him to pay himself hourly and not use an owner's draw, and to focus on direct commercial and residential customers and not subcontract. Brian has been able to incorporate all of these items in his business, and the payoffs have been incredible. Within 6 months of off-season work, Brian's books were back to black by $10,236, with all previous loans paid and everybody having a paycheck. With Brian on stable ground with his business, he requested business services to bring in quality employees. Of course, Voc Rehab was very eager to provide ready-to-work employees, and we're wanting it to work best for our employees, for Brian's employees, and for our job candidates. But we really focused on a specific focus for Brian, which was giving a second chance to substance abusers and those with criminal backgrounds. We knew cultivating the right employees for Brian would allow him to take a more managerial approach to his business, which was also a goal of his, while allowing the laborers to get the projects done on the ground. Brian is working exclusively with Voc Rehab to obtain employees, saving him significantly when it comes to posting jobs and getting new employees onboarded. Since this past June, we have placed one individual with Brian also referring an employee to Voc Rehab to overcome the barriers of their disability while on the job site.
This is Dave. I'm going to jump in real quick and then turn it over to Michelle for some final comments. But just a couple of things that I want to draw observation to is when we're talking about externships, one of my dreams has always been able to drive a Zamboni. So if you can do an externship, you might have a chance to drive a Zamboni. That's pretty cool. We talked a little bit at the beginning about the intersection of disability knowledge and business intelligence. And I think you can tell from the stories that these individuals have shared that there's a real grasp of the ability to grasp the knowledge of the business and apply it to the work they do, and they have fun doing it. And I think that's really important to bring out. You heard a little bit of the story of La Quinta, and one of the cool things about that story is the manager that got moved to our local store before the store was open. The first thing that manager did when they arrived, before they even broke ground, was to call the local VR office. And that occurred because of their relationship in a different community in Iowa where they had a successful relationship. So as we talk about business partnerships, it's really important to recognize that work carries on and can have momentum to build down the road. Stephanie, I loved her term of the hashtag humble brag, but I think it's important to recognize that, and Alina talked about this, that we don't do this work alone. We work under the umbrella of the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act. And one of the key things about WIOA is about how we align services to increase capacities for our core partner programs. And each of these individuals have really built effective partnerships at the local level that helps with that, specifically with our one-stop partners, our education partners, our Medicaid case management partners, and our community rehabilitation providers. And they've done an excellent job with that, and it really is the heart, I think, of how we drive the language of WIOA to create and leverage business engagement. So I'm going to turn it back over now, Michelle, for, I think, your final slides.
Final thoughts? We have 25 minutes left, and we thought that we would use most of that for questions since we kept all the questions till the end. But summarizing, what we want you to know is relationships with businesses work. And you heard from Jason, Alina, and Stephanie, and they're all very different people in very different communities, and they do things very differently. But what they do works for them. When we look at our the individuals we serve, and we're able to help successfully gain employment last program year. We helped 2,110 people. And I think that's a really significant number considering Iowa really embraces employment first, and we're working with the more severely disabled population. We're really working with our business partners to create job carves and job modifications to meet their needs and our job candidate needs. We, under WIOA, we enter business services, and so every time we provide an initial service to a business, we enter that. And we were able to look at those 2,110 people's lives that we changed. And we connected 964 services that we provided to businesses to those individuals, which is 46%. I think that that's a great number, that 46% of those we directly impacted because of the relationships and services that we provided to our business partners. I found it pretty incredible. Hy-Vee is a large grocery store here in Iowa, and we helped 137 people gain employment at Hy-Vee this last program year. And when we compared that to our business services, now remember, we only enter the service the first time we've provided it. We provided 291 new services to Hy-Vee. And I think that speaks volumes to the higher the number of services we're providing to our business partners, the higher our outcomes are. I know these guys are awesome, and our whole team is awesome. Actually, our whole state is pretty awesome. We're really lucky here in Iowa. I think that one of the things we do really well is we've always done really well is knowing our job candidates, and we know what their needs are. We know what they're good at. We know what their strengths are. We've always known that. The thing that we've learned to do really well, and I think is one of our greatest strengths, is we're able to do that now with our business partners, and I feel like we're making really amazing placements. We're not placing people in jobs any longer. We're placing them in careers, and they're there for the long haul. The business knows, well, we probably know when there's problems before the business knows there's problems because we're out on the floor mentoring, because we're in chamber and leadership groups and talking to people, because we're out in the community. We know the problems before they're going to arise, and we're able to intervene and help both our business partners and our job candidates to have that long-term career and help with the retention. I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
That we are. This is Philip from Respectability again, and thank you so much to our colleagues in Iowa who put this great presentation together today. I want to give folks in, who are there at your conference priority in terms of asking questions, but for those of you who have joined us online, there are two ways you can ask a question. If you're logged in with your computer, in the bottom left of the webinar screen, you'll see a Q&A box where you can type in a question, and that'll send it directly to me, and I can read it out to our lovely panelists. And operator, can you explain how to ask a question by phone if we have one?
Certainly, Philip. You can also, if you are dialed in and you want to ask a question, you can also press 7#, and that will signal me, and I will unmute your line.
Wonderful. So I'm going to exercise the moderator's privilege to ask the first question before anybody else has the chance to. And I want to dial in on the pre-employment transition services question. And you talk about families and natural supports for the job seekers you're working with. So I'm kind of curious, what do some of those conversations with the family members of the job seekers with disabilities that you're helping look like? And what kind of questions do your family members ask, and how do you kind of give them the resources they need to know that their person, that their loved one's going to have a chance to succeed if they do this?
Yeah, great question. It's Alina answering. So I think we really start those conversations early. A lot of us are in the high schools when we're out in the field, so we're getting to know the students and getting to know the parents. I know myself personally, I've attended parent-teacher conferences and shared with parents or students that I will be available for questions if the parents want to know what students are doing. Pre-employment transition services under that legislation shares that, as rehabilitation counselors or field staff, we need to be in the high schools. And so we use our contract programs. We're fortunate enough to have an intermediary network specialist as well as 2 transitional alliance programs, which allow for individuals represented not only from the high school but from vocational rehabilitation to be there at the high school on site. That's been another way that we've fostered buy-in from parents in allowing their children to participate in our summer program and other activities with vocational rehabilitation. So those are just a few things. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Thank you.
Yep.
I was going to say, do you have anyone at your conference who has a question for us?
They're kind of quiet. They're laughing at us because we were nervous, and so we are squeezing a rubber duck.
Hey, Philip, this is Dave again, and one of the things I would like to share about some of the work that the State Rehab Council is doing is we have several members that represent business and industry from this. So as we talk about business engagement, they're directly impacted by these conversations. And one of our new members, and we are planning to talk about this in our meeting after we're done today. One of our new members, as they came on board, we did a press release and shared in the local newspapers about his appointment to the State Rehab Council. He came from a business background, so it gave a good exposure and awareness to him in the local community, but also gave exposure to VR and about our presence in that community. And then within the first month of his appointment to the State Rehab Council, he met with our local staff and talked about what do we do and how do we do it to better educate himself. And then in follow-up to that, he's going to be taking a couple of our staff to some of his business contacts and introducing them to his business contacts. What a cool way to look at business engagement and the role of our council. So we have our council members represent a variety of different areas of community engagement, and they've been very involved in representing their area of expertise and helping influence services across the board for VR. So just a shout out to our council and for the role they play to impact services and employment outcomes.
Gotcha. And so I want to actually jump back to that self-employment piece because I think that there's a really big opportunity to get thinking about self-employment or entrepreneurship as a strategy for disability employment. So I'm curious, how do you take somebody who is a job seeker with a disability who might be interested in that, and kind of how do you work with them to kind of develop their idea of what their business is going to be or what's it going to look like?
Gosh, where do I even begin? This is Stephanie Meyer responding to that quizzically and unsure how to answer your question, Philip. Really what we do, it's a lot of backstage items where we're working with some of those agencies we talked about earlier in the presentation. There was a slide that talked about the SCORE mentors and the small business development centers, and we have standalone economic development centers in certain areas of the state as well. And a lot of what happens for our self-employment specialist roles is that we're actually meeting behind the scenes with those folks that are heading those agencies, and we're finding out how best are you cultivating business in your area. We're talking with them about strategies of business development. We're trying to create essentially a script of questions that we can ask for our candidates of varying ages and abilities. And so much of it is occurring backstage so that we can really try to provide, when we get onto stage and into those actual conversations with our clients, we're trying to have a really seamless approach where we can attack that business development in the most effective and the most efficient way, so that we're not so much focusing on the disability per se, but we're actually focusing on, okay, through your counseling with your VR counselor, we've already identified your strengths, and we've identified, maybe some things you're not so great at. Usually that's bookkeeping. And a lot of times what we'll do is we have to have that natural support discussion to say, we know that we're not great at the bookkeeping or the organizational management. Who can we rely on in your inner circle that could really help with this? And if we can't find that person, that's where we start really cultivating early on. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to look at hiring someone to come in and do this. And we have an entire, great overflowing pot of people that we could refer from VR to fulfill that need, whether it's bookkeeping or accountant or tax preparation, anything like that. So we really start from the very beginning. It's kind of a Candyland map of navigating that business development right into making sure that that person, that entrepreneur, has all the supports they need, either in the community, within their family, or supports that we help cultivate for them through hiring employees down the road. And that's, again, where those business services can come in. I hope I answered your question.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm going to jump in, too, to piggyback on that. This is Dave again. And Philip, to kind of combine your two questions about pre-ETS and self-employment, Stephanie in our business program did a summer pre-employment transition workshop on one of our area offices, and it was really a good experience that resulted in kind of a Shark Tank experience for our job candidates at the end of the week. But during the course of the week, in 4 days, the students learned about self-employment and what it takes to be a business owner. And at the beginning of that first day, the kids had no idea what a business plan was or anything like that. By the end of the day, not only could they write a business plan, they knew about financial profit and loss statements and inventory, and their knowledge had improved so much. And the coolest thing about that is one of the students they all presented business ideas, but one of the students presented a business idea about solving a transportation need that involved a hybrid electronic cars. And when they were asked, well, why did you come up with this? The student said, well, my mom and dad have lost jobs because they didn't have transportation in their area. So this young man with a significant disability, 16 years of age, was applying pretty good analysis and problem-solving skills to solve an issue his family was having. And it was really a cool experience for everybody involved. Another student had an idea to limit social media access on their cell phones. And when asked about it, the student said, well, all my friends spend all their time on their phone and we never talk to each other. We need to limit that. And again, they were applying real-life solutions to a problem they were dealing with. And you think about employment skills and soft skills and some of those things we look at that businesses want. Those two kids were demonstrating that in a discussion about self-employment. I think those are things that really lay the groundwork for how we build a future-ready workforce.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I believe we have a phone question.
Yes, we do, Philip. Deborah, go ahead, please.
My name is Deborah Bradley. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a statement. I've been on the phone almost 2 hours, and I was amazed. It was very professional, and I learned a lot from it. I just want to say you guys did not sound nervous at all. You sound like a pro.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome.
Deborah, can I ask what it is that you do? Are you a Voc Rehab?
I'm a disability coordinator for almost 34 years with UAW, and I work with OWIA here in Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us from Los Angeles, California. Just about half of my staff are actually currently there right now at a Workforce Development Board meeting.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Thank you for the kudos, Deborah.
No, not a problem. You deserved it.
Well, so I'm gonna again, throw my hat in and have a different question. And so you talk about, job carving as being a path for kind of really looking at a job description and figuring out, well, what are the tasks somebody can do or what are tasks that somebody else could do. So I'm wondering, can we kind of take a couple steps back and walk us through, how does that conversation look with a business?
This is Jason Rubel. From my perspective, again, as I mentioned before, where I used to go in to a business and try to fit that job candidate into a position, now I look at it differently, and I think it's going into the business and doing a job analysis or analyzing the tasks of the different positions that they've got at that business and just taking a real good look at, boy, do you have some things around here that are just taking people who are on your general payroll, taking them away from things that they could be doing for you that are more valuable, and they're having to go take time away from those more valuable things to go do these other tasks that are maybe just as important, but they're not part of the essential functions of what their job should be and what they should be putting most of their time to. So finding those things and then going back to my area office and thinking, how can we best provide that service to that business, or how can I present to that business that, maybe we'd have somebody who could do those, just that certain portion of tasks, and it would show a value to your business and your bottom line by freeing these other individuals up. I don't think it's so much taking a look at the job candidate and what they can do, and then going into the business and trying to find what they might be able to do in the business, but finding what the business has for a need that would free their other employees up, and trying to find one of our individuals who would be a good fit based on that need.
Philip, this is Dave, and just as a follow-up to that too, Iowa has benefited from a relationship with the Office of Disability and Employment Policy with the Department of Labor for the last 7 years, working on technical assistance in the area of customized employment and employment first, primarily focused on how do we discover the job candidate's abilities and contributions and talents and interests. And what the VR Business Services team has done is take that and flip it around to say, well, how we apply learning about the job candidate can work just the same in how we learn about the business. So we already have the skills to be able to do that. Let's just apply it to our business customers. And it's a very similar process that we're trying to walk through.
Got it.
Yeah, I would say some of the conversations are probably pretty parallel. You talk with a business about the types of accommodations that they could maybe make given certain limitations or problems, and we have that same conversation with our job candidates. Sometimes that's one of the first things we discuss. Have you talked with your employer about this or that accommodation? And so I think a lot of those that dialogue is very transferable from one situation to the next, be it a job candidate we're working with or the business per se.
Gotcha. All right. Does anyone at your conference have any final questions for us?
This is Alex, if you can hear me. I'm the chair of the State Rehabilitation Council. First off, I would just echo Deborah a little bit in saying how proud we all are of this team and the incredible work that they do in the field each and every day. And I, as the chair of the committee, and I know the committee feels the same way, as we cannot thank them enough. As I think about respectability and the mission of this organization and kind of that brought us all here together today, I think a lot about empowering people with disabilities and getting them back into the workforce. Maybe some that have never seen themselves in the workforce, or people that were in sub-minimum wage jobs and getting them into competitive integrated employment. I would just, as kind of a wrap-up, not everyone on the panel has to answer, but is there any piece of advice or one tidbit or something that you would say that maybe that person that works with a person with a disability, or even that person with a disability, what is one takeaway or one first step that maybe you would encourage them to take?
I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first so I can steal it before anybody else gets it. This is Stephanie Meyer. Honestly, I have one word, and that's talk. just talk. Someone that has a disability starting at the age of 6 might find different barriers versus when they're 38 versus when they're 65. Those things are always evolving, and I hope that the person with the disabilities is confident and comfortable talking about what their limitations are, what their strengths are. They really have a lot of power to formulate that dialogue. And I think for those that are working with individuals with disabilities or have family members that have a disability, again, just talk to them about what they feel, how they can feel empowered, what they feel they can accomplish. I really don't think, besides communicating in general, I don't think we have a good way of learning about those things without just genuinely talking with someone and having a robust dialogue.
Oh, well, this is Michelle, and I guess my advice would be never stop networking. Whether you're a business owner looking to hire people or you're a job seeker, if we think about it, I mean, we tend to want to work someplace where we know people, that we know it's a good environment that matches with our own values. And I know our business partners have also said they tend to hire people that they have a connection to, whether it be by meeting them at a job shadow or a friend of one of their employees. Keep networking, keep meeting people, keep expanding your network of professionals.
This is Jason again, and I know that was kind of a question focused on how to work with the people who have the disabilities, but my brain is most of the time it's business focused, and how can I flip that around, as we were saying before. And I think it's so valuable to be able to go out into businesses and build those relationships, get people in there and change mindsets. There's a lot of times when I just know when I go into some businesses, when I mention the population that we work with and use that catchword disability, they all have some image or something that comes into their mind. And by showing them that it's not just whatever that perception is, and showing them how much value we can bring to their business, and having people working within the business, the other employees and their coworkers working alongside of them and all those things, changing mindsets all throughout the state of Iowa, the nation, whatever, business by business, is valuable to each and every person with a disability.
Wonderful, thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I learned a lot. I think our audience learned a lot, both at your conference and here online. Thank you so much. I want to quickly again thank all of our presenters for their insights, their ideas, and some really practical ideas to carry things forward. Thank you so much. Just to quickly wrap things up, we have one more, Respectability has one more webinar scheduled next week on Wednesday, October 30th at the same time. You can find out about that on our website, respectability.org. And that we're going to be kind of talking about, on the business side of things, building a corporate culture of inclusion. And I think it'll be a really interesting note to carry on the things we've been talking about and learning from this webinar and some of the other ones we've hosted. Likewise, later on in November and December, Respectability is going to be kicking off a really deep, long-running equity webinar series talking about promoting accessibility, diversity, everything from making social media accessible to hiring people with disabilities in the nonprofit space. I think it's going to be a really interesting learning journey for everybody who's interested in these issues. So go to our website again. It's respectability.org. Thank you so much, everyone, and this concludes today's